7 things to consider before learning any skill in 2025 and beyond. It's just that Michael here, and in this video, basically, what I want to do, right, is to share with you 7 vital points, 7 vital things that are necessary, before you delve, you spend your time, your energy, or your resources into learning any skill set in 2025 and beyond. Now, the reason why this is important is because the last thing you want to do, right, is to spend your time and your money, right, investing in something that's either going to become obsolete very soon or will not be relevant in the next few years, right? And this is especially because of the advent of AI. And, with what we're seeing in artificial intelligence right now, there's so many changes. Industries across board is being affected. And the best bet is for you to be able to stay up to date, right? And to know the things that are necessary, the things that will be relevant, and pour your energies into these things so you can actually become relevant in the next few months and in the next few years, right? Now, in no particular order, I'm going to be sharing these things, so take note of them. At number one, right, it is the impact of AI on the skill set. Now, before you learn any skill, right, one of the first things you need to ask yourself, you must ask yourself, is the impact of AI on the skill, right? Now, I like to categorize the impact of AI on the skills in 3 categories right now. There are industries that have experienced high impact. There are industries that has experienced mid impact. There are industries also that have experienced, low impact of AI, probably, the adoption rate and all of that. Now, if you look very well, the whole digital marketing industry, the whole creative industry, the whole entertainment industry, the customer support industries have been really impacted by AI, including, software development, and all of that has been seriously and significantly, impacted by AI. I think it was recently, right, that Elon Musk put out a tweet, and he said in the next few years there will be no coding, right? And it was not capping, right? And this is because even right now, as I speak, as at the time of recording this, there are AI software engineers already. There are AI agents that are software engineers, and guess what? They code better than most software developers. And this was the founder of Salesforce, right? Who shared that most of their engineers right now are actually AI engineers. It's AI engineers that are writing codes, right? I mean the codes for Salesforce, right? What does that tell you? If, as you are right now, you're thinking of learning software development as someone who wants to sit to be writing codes and all of this stuff, you are headed for the rocks already. And the reason is because in a few years from now, human beings will not be responsible for writing codes. As I speak to you, even ChatGPT is writing codes, DeepSeek is writing codes, right? Copilot is writing codes, right? These are platforms, these are AI tools that people are literally using to write codes and build tons and tons of websites and apps, right? So if you're learning this skill and with the idea of having to sit down to write codes for company, you are in the wrong direction. It's the same thing with digital marketing, right? AI can read, is literally writing sales copies that is pulling numbers, right? And your best bet, right, is not for you to, of course, it is important that you have an understanding of these things because, for you to be able to use AI in this regard, you need to be able to understand prompt engineering. For you to be able to understand prompt engineering, you need to have a prerequisite understanding of the skills in itself, right? Now, but however, you're not learning the skill because you want to sit with with your pen and all of that to start writing copies. Yes, it is good. Yes, these things are cool, but AI can do better if prompted better. So these are things you should consider. It has also, another place where I've actually seen a high impact in the area of customer service, right? Customer support. Right now we are dealing with AI agents, right? AI agents are literally providing support. And guess what? These AI agents do not need breaks. Human beings need breaks. AI agents don't. Human beings need vacations. AI agents do not need vacations, right? Human beings need salary. So much overhead costs. Teams have tons of people who are doing customer support for them. Guess what? AI agents are currently doing most of the customer support with little of human intervention. What does that tell you? If you're going to take customer support courses, and all of those things, you are probably wasting your time. And the reason I say you're wasting your time is not because they are not good. It's because most of these things are things that are currently being delegated, right, for AI. They are currently being delegated to AI, and AI are actually performing this task. And guess what? most of them are actually performing these tasks better than human beings are, right? Another area, that it has seriously impacted is in the area of advertisement, right? I mean, when I'm running Facebook ads, literally you could see you could see the performance of AI there. Facebook, gives you stuff like what they call Advantage Plus, right? Where AI takes your creative, takes your copy, and literally stores, it gets to study it, right? And distribute your copy and your creative, distribute your advertisement to those, right, that it believes are going to be much more interested in what you are selling, right? And I foresee that in the next few years, we're gonna have more of this. Where, in fact, I foresee that in the next few years, right, we're gonna see personalized advertisements on newsfeed. Where you're literally scrolling through your Facebook, right, and you are seeing your name attached to advertisements, right? For example, Michael. This sounds like something you'll be interested in. You're literally going to be seeing personalized advertisement in a couple of years from now. This is something I'm forecasting right now. What does that tell you? It tells you that if you're learning advertisement the obsolete way, where you're just trying to to build audiences and all of that, you're actually probably wasting your time. You need to begin to learn how to leverage AI to do better targeting. You need to begin to learn how to use AI to do better, to write better ad copies basically, and push your advertisement to a more relevant audience, right? Now there are also industries where it has impacted, right? But this time around they are mid impact. For example, teaching, medical diagnosis. Yes, we are seeing the intervention of AI in these industries, but at the mid impact level, is it going to increase in a few years from now? Of course it is going to increase, right? But then as at the time of recording this video, I've been seeing a mid impact trend in this industry, even in the legal research, even in the legal industry. AI has actually impacted these industries, right? But it has been at a mid impact level. All right. Now there are also low impact levels, right? Low impact industry that it has affected. For example, consulting, right? Hospitality industry. Yes, AI, can do a lot of things, with your accounting, and all of that. But then you still need people who are going to, who are going to move around, people who are going to interface with guests, right? You need all of these guys on ground. Is it going to affect this industry in the nearest future? Yes, of course, it's going to affect the industry. But at the time of recording this, right, I'm actually seeing a low impact of AI in this industry. It's the same thing with skilled workers. For what it is worth, 10 years from now, maybe we might have robots who build the furnitures. But for now, right? For now, what we are seeing is that in the skilled industry, right? Like the hard skilled industry, right? Like carpentry, the furniture making, the mechanics and all of that. Yes, we've seen the impact of AI in mechanics as well, right? But then I'm seeing a low impact trend across this industry. Another area, right, that I've actually seen a low impact trend is in the area of psychotherapy, counseling, right? People are always going to have mental illnesses. People are always going to need counseling. People are always going to need an intervention, and AI cannot necessarily do an intervention. Can it do that? Yes, it can do that. Yes, it can. I'm into sales, right? And you can literally get AI on the call. Open a, get a chat with ChatGPT, and it's literally you're having that interaction like a role play session and all of that. So these things are happening already. But for what it is worth, we will still need human interventions in these industries, right? Now, the second thing, right, that you must consider before learning any skill is what I call timelessness. Now, there are skills that are time bound, and there are others that are timeless. Let me give you an instance. So, 60, 70 years ago, right? When we have the typewriters, the typists 50 years ago, they were the cream of the crop. It was a high in demand skill set. If you were a typist, if you could type, you could command a reasonable amount for your salary and all of that, right? If you were a cashier, you could command a very high amount for your salary. But guess what, right? Fast forward to the 20s, these skill sets have gone obsolete simply because we now have the computers, the laptops, in the hands of almost everybody. The smartphone is in the hands of everybody. So being able to type is no longer an advantage, meaning that skill set is not timeless, right? But on the other hand, Sales, right, is actually a timeless skill set. It's a timeless universal skill set. So one of the things you must be able to ask yourself before you learn any skill set is this skill set actually a timeless universal? Is this something that's going to be relevant in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, right? If it is not, you have to drop it. 3 years ago, sales has been relevant. 100 years ago, public speaking has been relevant. 200 years ago, you have to negotiate, right? And guess what? 20 years from now, people will still need to negotiate. What does that tell you? Learn negotiation, right? Learn sales, learn public speaking, learn communication. These are skill sets that will never go extinct. Why? Because they are universal, what? Universally timeless, right? They are timeless universals, right? Now, the first thing you need to understand before learning any skill set is what I call supply and demand, right? Now, I'm going to cite an instance for you. Before getting into any industry, one of the things you need to ask yourself is, what is the market size of this skill set? For example, you cannot compare the market size, right, for real estate as you compare for that, as you compare to that of, let's say, let's say for furnishing. For what it is worth, you always need, you always have people, right? You always have people who need real estate, right? You always have people who desperately need real estate. People will always buy land, people will always sell land, people will always need a place to sleep, right? So the total addressable market, the demand for real estate will always be there, right? The demand for real estate will consistently and constantly always be there. Like I said, the demand for typewriters is no longer there as it was as it was for like 50 to 60 years ago. But the demand for real estate is still here, right? So you need to ask yourself, right? Is this thing going to always be in demand? If it's going to be in demand, what is the supply? How many people are currently doing this thing? How many people are currently doing it, right? What is the market size, right? Who pays for this skill set? Like Alex Moses said, if you solve rich people's problem, you will have rich people reward. Rich people, you get paid by the rich. If you solve poor people's problem, you're going to be paid by the poor people, right? So what does that tell you? It's very simple, right? You need to be able to understand supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. How much can you charge for your skill set? What is the skill earning cap? Now, every skill set has an earning cap, meaning there is only there is a maximum, right, to which you can actually charge for every skill set. For example, a graphic designer can only command a certain fee, right? Not as much as as a software developer will, right? Of course, there are skills that the graphic designer can actually possess, right, that makes it advantageous for him to be able to charge at that level. For example, knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to persuade, right? Knowing how to build systems around the skill set. But generally speaking, naturally, a software engineer is naturally going to command a higher fee, right, than someone who just knows how to design flyers. Now, I don't have anything against graphic designers, just to put this out there. I have graphic designers on my team. The thumbnail for this video is going to be designed by a graphic designer, but I'm just saying that these guys actually attract a different fee, right, as compared to people who have a more advanced skill set in that sense, right? So another thing you need to consider before learning any skill set is what I call the barrier of entry. And this is very important. Now, I remember back in 2018, right, when I started learning digital marketing, right, at the time, right, there was serious demand, right, for digital marketers in Nigeria, because there was there were a lot of companies, right, who needed digital marketers, but the supply at the time, right, was actually very low, because there were very few people at the time, who knew how to set up ads, who know how to do media buying, and all of those stuff, right? But what happened, because there was a low barrier of entry in the industry, there were a lot of people, right, who did what? Who flooded into the industry, and it was just a matter of time. The industry became overcrowded and became very competitive, right? Now, what does that tell you? before you learn a skill set, one of the things you need to ask yourself is how difficult is it to actually learn this thing, right? Because when the skill set becomes too easy, it means that everybody can learn it, and when everybody can learn it, it becomes crowded. And when it's crowded, what happens? There's actually a limit to how much pay you can actually get to command, right? And another thing you need to understand that when the barrier of entry is higher, right, there are less people are going to be there, right? And what happens? More people are going to be now. This is like kind of like correlated with the whole supply and demand I talked about earlier, right? Because you need to understand that the reason why somebody is going to pay you much more is because there are actually few people who can actually deliver the value that you're offering, right? And the more value you can deliver, the more money you will make. That is why I said earlier on that a software developer, a software engineer would naturally command more figures, right? More charge, more money, right, than a graphic designer. Not necessarily because he is a software developer, right? But because there is a higher barrier of entry, right, in software engineering than there is to graphic design, right? The same way someone who knows how to build AI agent, right, is going to command more fee than someone who's just a digital marketer, right? Because being able to build AI agents is actually much more technical, right? Than being able to to do digital marketing and all of those stuff. So you need to really consider the barrier of entry, right? Before learning a skill set. Now, the next thing I want to talk about that you need to consider before learning a skill set is what I call the time to reward ratio. Now, many times people start learning a skill and they don't have an idea, right, of how long it is going to take before they master the skill and start making money from that skill, right? And this explains, right, why there's so much frustration. People tend to like start a skill, right? They get, okay, for example, they say, okay, you need to learn, for example, software engineering, like software development, right? And they underrate how long it actually takes to learn these things. And guess what? They are 2 months in this thing, they are 3 months in this thing, and they're not making the kind of money that they expected to make. And guess what happened? They begin to feel frustrated. Oh, software engineering is not working. There's no money in this thing. There's no money in AI and all of that. Without understanding that in between, before you start learning something and before you start earning from that thing, there is a gap. I call it the transformation gap. And between that transformation gap, right, there's a whole lot that you're going to need, right? You're going to need to be patient. You're going to need to be consistent. Your patience is going to be seriously tried. It's going to be seriously tried. So the question you need to ask yourself is, am I willing to pay the price that is required in that transformation gap? Because if you're unwilling to pay the price that is required to stay in that transformation gap, what's going to happen is that you're not going to be able to see that skill through to the point where you can actually earn from it, right? Now, just goes on to strengthen what is said in the Bible, that he that must build a house must first of all count the cost, right? Now, this is one reason why mentorship is very important, and I highly recommend mentorship. When you're learning this skill, because one of the things that mentorship does for you, right, is that it helps you to compress time, right? It helps you to compress your learning curve. So let's say normally it's supposed to take you like 6 months, right, on your own for you to learn that skill set and master it and probably even start earning from it, right? One of the things that mentorship does for you, right, is that it helps to compress that learning curve, because you're able to stand on the shoulder of a mentor, right, and be able to suck in the juice from their experiences that they've had. So you need to seriously consider the time to reward ratio before learning any skill, right? And number 6, right, is what I call alignment with your natural strength. I'll be very honest with you. I'm not so much of a technical person. I don't know how to build apps. I tried learning coding back in 2019. It did not work for me. It was not my thing, because I was more inclined to public speaking. I was more inclined to closing. I was more inclined to sales. I was more inclined to using words to sell, whether it was through writing copies or it was through speaking one on one. And what I found was that instead of trying to do something that was outside of my natural strength, why not just hone on my natural strength, put in the discipline, put in the work, and strengthen the things that are my natural strength. Now, something about your natural strength that I need you to understand. Now, there are things that might be your natural strength but do not have the elasticity to expand, that would not be relevant in the next 2 to 3 years. ditch those things. For example, you could say, oh, you're someone who likes graphic design, all of that. Graphic design is your natural strength. Fantastic, it's good. Question, will it be relevant in the next 2 years? Right? So something aligning with your natural strength is not an independent variable. It aligns with your natural strength. Fantastic. Question, does it align with the other factors, right? That is it, for example, is it a universal, is it, I mean, for example, is it a timeless universal? That's another question you should ask yourself. So in other words, if it aligns to your natural strength and is a timeless universal, fantastic. Stick to it, go for it. If it aligns with your natural strength, but it is not a timeless universal, I would always recommend every time that you go for something that is a timeless universal. For example, learn how to negotiate, learn sales, right? Learn how to persuade, right? These are things that are timeless universal, right? The seventh thing, the last but not the least, right, that you need to understand before learning any skill is find and master the complementary skill. So I like to say this, that the best, I mean, the most successful video editors are not necessarily the ones who know how to edit videos the most, right? They are actually the ones who understand the business of video editing. The highest paid AI architects, AI engineers are not necessarily the ones who know how to build the best AI models and all of that, right? They are people who understand the business of AI. For example, for what it is worth, there are people who know how to code and build AI structures better than Sam Altman, right? There are probably people who know how to build better spaceship than Elon Musk, right? But guess what? Because these guys actually understand the business of their craft, guess what? They are going to command, this is why they command more fees than the ordinary person. So don't just stop at saying, okay, I want to learn this skill. Ask yourself, is there a complementary skill that you need to master? For example, if you're into advertisements, you're into you're into the sales of digital product. Fantastic. Question, do you know how to sell one to many? Do you know how to hold a webinar? Do you understand the psychology of mass persuasion, right? Because if you do not understand this thing, right, you're going to be broke. Question, do you understand client acquisition at scale? Do you understand how to set up an ad? If you don't, you're going to be broke. So what does that tell you? These are things that you need to put into serious consideration before learning any skill set, before learning anything, especially in 2025 and beyond. In no particular order, I've mentioned finding and match and find and master the complementary skill, the barrier of entry, alignment with your natural strength, whether it's a timeless universal or not, the impact of AI on the skill, and so on and so forth. So these are things that you should put into serious consideration. Now, if you have any questions, right, regarding any particular skill set you want to ask, you want to learn and you want to ask me, kindly put your question in the comments section and I will do my best to respond to your question. If you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed, I would highly recommend that you do so, because I get to share ideas like this and turn on the notification when you do, so you do not miss out on important videos like this. Until I come your way next time, I'll see you in my next video. This is just like Michael. Make sure you learn the things that are relevant, that are universally timeless, right, and can put money in your pocket, right? So that being said, I'll see you in my next video.